Hello, listeners. Been wondering how you can help the show? Probably not. But here are 5 things you can do. 1. Subscribe. Support the show by clicking the subscription link in the show notes. 2. Review on iTunes, on our website, www.afraidofnothingpodcast.com, or on whatever app you listen to. 3. Donate. When you go to our website, click the cute coffee cup icon, or in the show notes, click the subscription link. 4. Share. Sharing really is caring. Tell your friends and even your enemies to check out the show. 5. Watch. Wait a minute, it's a podcast, not a movie. Actually, it's both. Check the show notes to find out where to watch the documentary. You can also rent it on Prime Video. That's it. Oh, one last thing. Enjoy this episode. Today's show is... That's right, it's a collector's item. Why? Because it's one of the rare times you'll actually hear from Ruthie Larkin, a.k.a. the Beantown Medium, on a podcast. And it's all because Ruthie was in my documentary, which she really liked, by the way, and because she really likes me and Cuyle. Although, as you'll hear later, Ruthie likes Cuyle a little bit more because his soul is evidently better than mine. Anyway, hey, we're all together in this in the singularity. So, check out the show notes, and this may be the last month you can purchase from the AON podcast store. So go online and buy. Hey, I'm not threatening. It's just that while our episode downloads are spiking through the roof, our garment sales are flat. So buy now. And here we go.
In a world where nothing is known, nothing is certain, reality is not real. Wake up! Be afraid of nothing. I'm Bob Heskey.
Robert.
The host with the ghost.
This is my podcast, based on my paranormal documentary, Afraid of Nothing. Each episode, we talk to people who see life and the afterlife through a different lens. Join me.
Who is this large man? And what's he doing in our bedroom?
As we lift the veil and open our minds to see beyond our eyes lie. This is Afraid of Nothing.
Ruthie Larkin has had psychic and healing abilities since childhood. She used them for the benefit of her family and close friends until 2007, when she decided to embrace her calling. Having spent her adult life in corporate sales for major organizations, she finally decided it was time to utilize her gifts. She now has a substantial following around the country, particularly in the New England area. She's available for private phone and group readings, as well as large events. She also has a considerable Reiki following. Many times her healing gifts are combined with an on-the-spot reading during these sessions. She's frequently asked to do house clearings when families feel that their home has negative energy. Ruthie's gifts are often utilized during a house clearing, as she is able to decipher the root of the negativity. Ruthie also gives complimentary readings to parents who have lost a child through death. She feels blessed to be able to provide this service. Her long-term goal is to found a nonprofit organization of psychics to help parents and law enforcement agencies locate missing children. All right, this show is a double gift. We have Cuyle Carvin back with us, who is in my film, The Afraid of Nothing documentary, and who I interviewed a couple episodes ago, as well as Ruthie Larkin, one of the most gifted mediums you are ever going to encounter if you're so lucky to get her services. And she was also in my film, and she did a reading for Cuyle. So welcome, Cuyle. Welcome, Ruthie.
Yay.
Hi there.
So awesome to have you. I know you're so busy, it's hard to kind of get you, but I'm glad we have you and that you're feeling good and we're ready to rock and roll.
I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Ruthie, let's kind of start at the beginning because you always knew you had psychic gifts, but you didn't embrace them until a little bit later, after you had a job in the corporate life. You mind telling us about how you came out of the psychic closet? And then, selfishly, tell us about your impressions of the documentary. It's always interesting to hear what someone who was in a film thinks about it when they finally see it after a couple of years. So let us have it.
I'd be happy to do that. Well, first of all, I was actually pushed out of the psychic closet. I didn't come out willingly at all. I don't look like a nerd, and I don't look like I'm scientific, but I'm extremely scientific. I always say, I love the eyelashes and the extensions, but inside I'm all nerd. So I'm very logical, and I like an analytical. So I never understood how the gifts worked, meaning psychic abilities. I had them my whole entire life, and only mostly used them for family and close friends and for premonition type things, illnesses, accidents, and things like that. But I didn't understand it, and I was tested in my 20s. But they didn't teach me what I wanted to know was, how did this work? What I learned was that I had great psychic abilities. And so I kept it under wraps. I really didn't want to be known as someone that was different. And I worked with engineers. So you know how engineers are. I didn't want anyone knowing anything. And so it wasn't until I took a course a little from 10 to 11 years ago. It was a Reiki course. And I learned that I was a psychic medium at that point in time, which I had no idea that's what I was, meaning that I had the capacity to talk to people who had passed. I knew I saw spirit. I knew I had psychic ability, but I didn't know I was a medium. And I found out when I took this course. And so I thought, I took the whole course. It's four courses. They're long, they're tedious. It took me about a year to take all. I'm a Reiki master teacher now. And I thought, well, now that I know this about myself, I'm a medium, I need to do something with this. It's my, I need to give back somehow, some way. So I decided to give readings to parents who had lost children. I didn't know anyone, Bob and Cuyle, that had lost a child. I had never lost a child. I was just led in that direction. So I thought about it, but I didn't have a plan. I had no plan. I was very busy in the corporate world. And I was national account sales manager. So I was working, probably 12, 16-hour days. So I didn't really think about it. I just knew that I should do it. And this is a great story. I went to a Christmas party a couple of weeks after I finished my last Reiki workshop. And I was there in this great big Christmas party, and I was all dialed up, and I was so excited to have some time with my friends. And I noticed this man in the middle of the room. And it was a really big room. It was a big party in downtown Boston. And he was standing there with the drink in his hand. And I noticed him, not because of him, but because he had a spirit son standing behind him. And I thought, oh, good God, not now. I don't want to see this now. This isn't the time, because it's not often that someone is that clear in spirit and would show himself like that. That's not a typical scenario for me. And so, when you're trying not to look at something, but you can't stop looking, did that ever happen?
Yeah, it's usually looking at live girls in a room, though, for us, for me.
It's like living people, yeah.
So I couldn't stop looking. And so I thought, oh, my God, I can't believe this. And the son was a couple inches taller than this guy. And this guy was tall. He was about 6'2", 6'3". And he looked, I just knew he was the son. He had shocking mid-hair, big dimples, big smile. And he kept calling me over and pointing to his dad. And I thought, oh, my God, I've got to go. I've got to go over. This kid's not going to leave me alone. So I went over there and I introduced myself. And his name was Bob, too. And I said, did you by any chance lose a son about 19 or 20, taller than you? So he's really a big guy, maybe 19 or 20, and shocking red hair and big dimples, lots of freckles, and a big, huge smile. And he looked at me extremely suspiciously, as he would, and said, I did. And I said, I didn't say anything. Actually, I was like, well, now what do I say? And with that, this woman comes barreling up to me and she says, are you a psychic medium? It was his wife. And I thought, oh my God, she thinks I'm trying to hit on her husband. and I said, I am. And she goes, oh my God, I went to see a psychic medium today. And she told me I was going to be at a Christmas party tonight. And our son was going to introduce us to another psychic medium who was going to help us. That's how I got started. Is that not an amazing story?
That's really crazy. Yeah.
Where do you go from here, Ruthie? Oh my God.
I know.
Yeah, that was like that's the sign. Your point of no return at that point, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I, told them things right away that night. And then after that, I went to their home. And that's what I used to do then. About 1 or 2 nights a week, I would go see someone who lost a child. I would go to their home. And the energy was so strong there. It was unbelievable, in the home. And I would spend hours with these families. I don't have time to do that anymore, which is heartbreaking. But now I do 2 or 3 complimentary readings every single week. I try to do that. I would do it full time if I could at no charge. If I didn't have to have a livelihood by having a practice, I would just do that and help parents.
So Ruthie and I think we had a reading. It was back in like 2011 or 12ish, give or take.
Oh my God, has it been that long?
I know, right? It has been
still
a long.
Hot, Kyle.
Well, I don't know. You haven't seen any updated pictures of me, so you don't know.
I think I have. I don't forget I have gifts.
That's true. That's true. Yes. So it's. I think when we first talked, I actually got a gift from a friend.
You did?
And his name is Fred Grandinetti. He's a very special and generous friend. And when we talked, I didn't really have an agenda to speak of anything in particular, but we did end up talking about I had lost a stepfather a couple years prior, which we talked about that. And I think we also talked about, you brought up that I had a connection with Salem.
I do remember the witch trials. And I remember you were a huge supporter of these women who were being, they were being hung for no reason. And you were just really helping them. I remember that. And what I also remember is that I think you were going to lose your life at the very end of it because you were so supportive and you really helped them.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a spot that I actually talked about, and you knew that spot in Salem. You knew the area.
Was that Dead Horse Beach? I think that's what we talked about.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wasn't familiar with it, but you knew it. And I said, you were very instrumental through all these witch trials, and you were instrumental in the respect that you were helping these poor women who were being accused of treacherous things, and they weren't, and it wasn't true. Also, I do remember, I think, you bought your mother a gift certificate after that.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what I said to her, but I remember she lost her husband, your stepfather. And I to this day, I remember him walking in the woods. He's like walking in the woods right now. I see him. Does that even sound familiar?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's, a couple of things. Like his name was Terry Fitzhenry, and we were actually gearing up, and he was out training because we were going to walk the Appalachian Trail. We had plans to do that the following summer. So he was up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, where he was actually, that day, he was spreading the ashes of his best friend up in the White Mountains. And when he got to the top, and after he spread the ashes, he called my mother and said he was on the way down, and he never made it down. He actually had a heart attack on the hill in the woods.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah,
because I'm seeing him right now. As I'm talking to you, I always say to people, I don't bring them in, you bring them in by just your energy. If I'm talking to you, I'm going to be able to see your peeps on the other side. So, but I see him walking in the woods, so he must have loved the woods too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that I met you. I really am, because now I can say I know a movie star.
No, I'm feelings very mutual. I'm glad I get to know a psychic superstar.
You recommended me to a few people, so thank you very much, Kyle. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You know, Ruthie, you actually are a movie star, because now I'll selfishly give a plug. You were in the Afraid of Nothing documentary with
sure
said
was.
actor Cuyle Carvin. So.
And you did close-ups, and I said, no close-ups, I'm over 40.
No, you look. We knew you'd look awesome, so it's great. It's always got to be a shock when you're interviewed for a documentary, and then like when it's finally done 2 years later. I mean, Kyle talked about it a little bit too, but he's more used to it because he makes films all the time. But when you first like got the link to the documentary and watched it, were you kind of nervous, or how did it unfold? What was your reaction? It's got to be kind of a nervous thing seeing how it comes out.
I was like, oh my God. Of course, me being, a woman, I'm like, I hope I look good. And I thought, oh, he did a close-up. I said no close-ups. And I'm over 40. So my friends were all saying, oh, you look great. You look great. So I actually watched it for the first time with my daughter and my grandson. And then I watched it again with my former husband. Of course, all my friends have watched it and everything. What I loved about it was that you hit on all dimensions of not spirituality, but the afterlife and everything that it could possibly mean to different people. And so, I have one way about me. Little Frog has another way about him. I loved The Astronomer, and he took you into another whole phase, and I loved that. I loved how you touched on so many different areas of this phenomena. I loved it. And mine is spiritual. I'm extremely faith-based. Everybody that comes to me knows I pray before every reading. I prayed before this podcast. I prayed that I would be guided to say and deliver the right messages, and that someone that would be listening to it would get something out of it that they needed to hear, that would either give them closure or make them feel better or open their minds. I feel that's why I'm here. I'm here to open minds and to help parents who have lost children. That's my main focus. You touched on every single area that you could touch on.
It's the greatest compliment to hear that from you, based on what you do and kind of the things that you deal with. So thank you. And there was a lot of pressure on me kind of personally because my first film I made was a drama, and it's kind of like, Kyle, you probably know, this is kind of like a gypsy caravan. People come together for 2 weeks, they're very tight and close, and then they're gone, right? But this one, actually, I've stayed friends, with people afterwards, which is really cool. Like probably most of the people in the film. And so I kind of had pressure on myself that I wanted to make sure I didn't make people look bad or like put them into their true essence, got their story across. So very happy that you said that.
We're all different. And no one operates the same with energy. Energy affects people differently. And before I do any reading, I talk about energy. Even when I do my shows, I talk about energy, because I get it. And I mean, I've even been to workshops with Deepak Chopra, who talks about energy and all the negative and positive aspects of it. So, and it's all energy, every bit of it.
Well, I have to tell you, you mentioned about like saying a prayer before things. I actually was saying a prayer hoping that, because I sought numerous people. Some people said yes, some people said no. But I just kind of said, you know what, I'm just going to trust fate and have the right people that should be in this film should be in it. I think that happened for, especially you two as some of the main cogs in it. So I'm thankful for that. So I'd kind of like to turn it to, I want to talk about some of your experiences with your readings. I want to start first with some of your funny ones. I'll take the light stuff. And then I'm going to ask Kyle to talk about some of your kind of deeper, probably powerful readings, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
You had sent a list of a couple. I'll just prompt you with them, and then if you could kind of fill in the rest. So you mentioned a little old lady whose husband said he still loved her, and she called him a bastard in front of a huge audience. You want to tell us about that?
Yes, that was so funny. Well, first of all, I never know what's going to happen when I'm going to give a reading. And as you know, talk about faith. When you're getting up in front of hundreds of people in a community center, and this was a community center, and they sold tickets, they all had dinners. It was a huge event. It was a huge, and I've done them down there once a year. They have me back every year. But anyway, I do events between 10 or 20 people and then hundreds of people. So when I'm going to go do an event for hundreds of people, I never know what to expect. I never know what to expect anyway, but you have to be a little bit nervous before you walk out on that stage because there's no way to prepare except to pray, which I do. So I was telling the whole entire audience how it worked, explaining energy. I always say, look, I'm the psychic medium who takes all the mystery and all the guesswork out of this. It's energy, and I talk about it. Well, I had this guy on the other side in spirit just wouldn't leave me alone. He was on me. He was like, that's my wife over there. That's my wife. I have to talk to her. And I'm like, I'm trying to talk to the audience. So I just had to stop what I was saying. And there's this little old lady sitting 2 tables away. And she was dressed to perfection. And she looked like she had money. And I said, excuse me, ma'am. And I pointed to her and I said, you lost your husband and I have him on my ear and he's not letting go until I talk to you. And she goes, I don't have a husband. I said, oh, yes, you do. And he's telling me his name is Jim. And she goes, I divorced that bastard. And I said, well, he's telling me he loves you. She goes, oh, my God, stop it. I said, he's telling me he loves you and he's so sorry for it. I said, he was an alcoholic and he's so sorry. And she goes, he made my life miserable. And this is in front of hundreds of people. It was hysterical. It was really, that was one of the funnier moments that I've
How did
had.
the ghost react? Do ghosts turn red, or how did he react when she was reacting?
Oh, no, they're persistent. They're persistent. We get many apologies. There are many apologies from the other side. And when I'm like, oh, I know that it's coming, and I'm like, oh God, here it comes. It's going to be an apology, because I can feel the energy of the spirit on the other side. But I had to call her up to the front. I said, okay, come on. Can you just give him a little break? He's dead, for God's sakes. Just give him a break. And everyone just laughed for like 10 minutes, I swear. It was great. That was great.
Now, there's a couple others that you mentioned. One was a grandmother who outed her granddaughter in front of a huge audience and told her parents all that she was lying about, which has to be a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
Or
I'll never forget that either. Neither will she. Her family. She was like 17, and I walked by, and what I would do is I go around the audience and I get someone from every table. I try to do a reading for someone at every table. And it was towards the end of the night, and we were kind of finishing up, and all of a sudden I walked by this table, and this grandmother came in. She goes, I need to talk to her family. And so I went over and I said, ma'am, you lost your mother, and this is your grandmother. And the whole family was at a table. And she says she's still talking to so-and-so, and she's still seeing him, and she had been lying to her parents. And they were like, they were laughing, but they couldn't believe the grandmother told everything she was doing. And I said, your grandmother cares about you, and she doesn't want you seeing that guy. But the parents were so shocked. And I think that happened down at the community center, too. I think that was it could have even been the same night. It was a funny night if it was the same night.
Wow. And then there's a nurse practitioner who didn't believe she was pregnant. That's the last one we'll do.
Yeah. She didn't believe she was pregnant. For some reason, I can zero right in on pregnancies. And a lot of us can. A lot of the psychics and the psychic mediums can. It's like they're in there waving to us or something. It's unbelievable. These little babies that are about to be, that are in utero. But I just walk by someone and I step back and I'm like, you're pregnant. It happens all the time to me. And I have this nurse practitioner who's a doll. She's like in her early 30s, and she comes to me once a year on her birthday. And it's like a little gift she gives herself, and her name is Stephanie, and she wouldn't mind me telling this story at all. She would love it. And I said, stand up, let me just read your body energy, because I like to do that. And she stood up and went, didn't you just have a baby? And she said, yes, I did. She's 8 months old. And I said, you're pregnant. She goes, no, I'm not. And I said, Stephanie, you're pregnant. She goes, Ruthie, I'm a nurse practitioner. I would know if I was pregnant. I said, you're pregnant and you got a boy in there. And you can stop after this if you want. Go home and take a test. So she did. And she texted me that night the picture of the test, positive. And she said, you really have a gift. So, and then she brought her husband to me several months later. Of course, she sent me pictures of the baby and everything. Her husband's a firefighter, and they were talking about it because they couldn't believe that I could know, because they didn't know. Neither one of them knew. And they talked about it, but it's interesting how this works. But pregnancies can never run away from me.
Yeah, that. I find that really interesting because it's like an angle of this that I never have even considered, but now hearing it, that's so prevalent for you. Like just the whole idea of, that we're all born with with gifts, and it's like, we only kind of lose them when we grow, as life beats it out of us, if you will.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you pick up on that. That's
another
cool.
thing I typically. And I always say if I receive the information, I give it out, but I do all the time. I can tell if someone ever had a miscarriage or a terminated pregnancy, and I tell them what the sex was. Sometimes they already know the sex, but I always tell them. And I think this is something that's interesting because, I was raised Catholic, really, real Catholic, 12 years of Catholic school and everything. And I was raised that terminated pregnancies just weren't okay. And that's my personal belief, but that's just me. That's my belief. But at the bottom line is from the other side, I have heard over and over and over again that they never want the mother to feel guilty. Never. They knew what they signed up for. It was always a lesson. It's all part of the life lesson plan. And I always tell these mothers, because they suffer terribly if they've terminated a pregnancy, but I feel that it's my job to tell them what I'm being told so that they can feel relief and they can go on and know that it's okay. But these little spirit children who were never born, either by terminated pregnancy or stillborns or miscarriages, always take care of the mother. They kind of hang on to her spiritually, and they're here to nurture her in times of stress or depression. It's a beautiful spiritual thing that they do. And I had never heard of anyone knowing about miscarriages and terminated pregnancies, another psychic medium, until I read a book. And this Gaelic psychic medium in Ireland, same thing. She gets it, and she knows the interpretation was exactly the same as mine. So I thought, well, there's two of us. There's got to be a lot more.
Yeah.
Ruthie, you said you do you check the body energy. You have them come up and you kind of scan the body energy. Rob Guttrow, who was on a prior show, is a dear friend of yours, great author, pet medium. He mentioned that you're kind of an amazing kind of healer, that you can diagnose things and you're also heal sometimes. Is that correct?
I do it all the time. I call them. If it was in person, I would do it in person in my healing room, but I can do it right over the phone because it's energy. And I just ask the person to close their eyes and think about themselves I said, I want you to go from the top of your head slowly down, and I guide them and I read the body. I'm a medical intuitive, and I can tell them if there's a problem, and I pick up old injuries or just pick up whatever's going on. And a lot of the husbands will send me their wives because instead of paying for an MRI, I can usually diagnose the problem. And there are so many times when I have to look it up because I don't even know what the medical terminology meant. It's something I never heard of before. It's a gift I didn't even know I had until about maybe 8 years ago.
Hey, everybody. This is your paranormal podcast pal, Bob Heskey. Every night I like to listen to videos on YouTube. But lately, with COVID, civil unrest, market volatility, politics, conspiracy theories, I just want to tune out. That's why I like Audible. What's Audible, you say? Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audio books, including some great horror and paranormal titles like A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay, If It Bleeds by Stephen King, and The Boatman's Daughter by Andy Davidson.
This place is cursed.
Each month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, access to daily news digests if you actually want to hear the news, as well as guided meditation programs. Hey, we all need a little Zen now and again. And Audible is oh so easy. You can download titles and listen offline, anytime, anywhere, on any device. The app is free and can be installed in your smartphone or tablet. You can even listen across devices without losing your spot. How cool is that? If you can't decide what to listen to, no problem. You can keep your credits for up to a year and binge on your favorite series later on. So, here's the rub. The Afraid of Nothing podcast is stoked to partner with the audio bookworms at Audible to offer you a free 30-day trial membership. Just follow the link in the show notes, audibletrial.com/AON podcast.
Puedes repetir eso, por favor.
That's audibletrial.com/AON, all caps, podcast, lowercase. Full disclosure, I get a commission for everyone who signs up using that URL. But you get to try it for 30 days without a commitment. Using our custom URL doesn't cost you a penny and helps out the show if you do sign up. Nothing scary about that. So escape reality and pick up a book, an audiobook, and listen to what's out there. Go to audibletrial.com/AON podcast after listening to the show.
Ruthie, some of the more memorable readings that you had that were tough. There's one where you were working with police and sending a ghost into the light after giving police officer freedom.
Yes. I often work with the police. Many psychics and psychic mediums do. In fact, 83 police chiefs and their police officers work with us in the New England area, which I think is wonderful and amazing. It's wonderful to be called by them. Typically, they will send me a picture of someone if they want me to find someone or if they want to know information about a murder or something. But this particular police chief was his officer was very gifted. He actually was gifted. And I had done some work with them before, so I went down and every time he passed this one area, he saw a ghost. And it was a ghost of a man. And the man was very disturbed. And every time he even went near that area, he had this incredible heaviness in his chest, like he was almost going to have a heart attack. But the heaviness was so profound that he started avoiding that entire area. So they called me in to find out what the heck was going on. Why was this happening? And I went down and I just went into the area, and it was this particular area was right on kind of a highway, but off of that highway was the woods, and there was a path that went into kind of like a pond. And I walked with them, and I said, part of him is in this pond. And I said, he was murdered. And I described the murder, and they knew who he was. I said, he has 3 children. He's a ghost because he can't leave this area, or he thinks he can't because he's afraid he won't be able to see his children. And I said, I'm going to send him into the light. And the way that works is I talked to him, and I made them back away. I sent them back probably 100 yards. I said, you two need to leave me with this. And I was right by the pond, and I was talking to him and telling him how he would be able to see his children. He'd even be able to help them more by being a spirit in the light than he would ever be able to help them as a ghost. And it took probably 15 or 20 minutes, but I sent him into the light, and they knew immediately when it happened, even though they were 100 yards away from me, because the police officer, he said it was as if this unbelievable heaviness came to a head and just flew out of his body with a huge, like, pop. So it was pretty amazing, and he was never bothered again, ever.
Do you meet a lot of people that have gifts that don't use them or want or actively try to avoid them?
Absolutely.
Actually,
Absolutely.
Is it a lot? Does it?
Everyone
Yeah.
has intuition. Everyone, Kyle.
Yeah.
And we all have different levels of it. But we can always increase it or decrease it, depending on which way we want to go.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of people actively try to avoid it for, whether because it's the circles that they surround themselves with or their jobs, and they just don't know how other people will take it. So they kind of hide it, or they're scared to share it.
That used to be me. And now I'm not like that anymore. Now I don't care who I'm talking to. I'm okay, really okay with it, because I understand it. But I was the same way. I worked with engineers, and one of the best things that happened to me was one of my favorite engineers came to me when his daughter died. And he didn't believe in any of this. He didn't even understand it. And he said, Ruthie, all I know is I trust you, because I worked with you for years and I know who you are. So I thought, my God, that was, to me, one of the best moments ever. He got an education.
Yeah, right. Well, then you had another. You mentioned that there were some twins who were born dead 4 months early, and they gave their parents quite an amazing reading. If you want to talk about that.
That was another beautiful reading, because Kyle, when I was contacted by them, and they lost twins in utero, and I never gave a reading like that before. And when you're doing a very different reading, you do get a little nervous, because you're afraid you won't give the parents what they need. You're just afraid that they're not going to get what they need. But then I just make sure I put it out of my mind, and I fast before these readings. Just to keep my body clear, and your body is much more clear when you're fasting. So, and I was a little nervous, but I just knew they lost twins. I didn't know the sex. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how old they were, but I knew they were lost in utero. And of course, when they came in, young couple, a wonderful young couple, it was their first babies. And boy, those twins came in fast and full of life. And full of energy, I should say. And they were fraternal. I was one of each. And they told me one was actually born alive. They actually were both born. They were 5 months along, so they were 4 months early. I said, oh my God, they told me the little girl was born alive. I mean, I was just getting goosebumps all over me. And I said, they said they came into this world. They want you to know you will have more children. But they came into this world to feel the love of a parent. And you both held both of these babies. And they felt that love. And that it was just one of the most unbelievable readings I've ever had. They went on and on, because these poor parents wanted to know why. Why? That was their whole reason for coming in. Their reason was to feel the love, and they want you to know this wasn't the best time for you to have babies, but you will be together for life. You two are in this life together forever, and you will have 3 children. And they gave me the sexes of the children. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I loved it, because I always hear back from my clients. They always go, okay, we just had our first child.
Yeah, I have to go in the bathroom and cry for like 15 minutes after hearing that. Just hearing the child say, like, that's what they just wanted to feel the love of a parent. Oh my God, that just makes me want to cry for days.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah, it really is. And then there was a fire chief who found his father with you.
Yes. And what happened was there was a private home show with about 20 people there. And there were several firefighters there, and the fire chief was there. I didn't know, of course, any of them, but I said, you were raised without a father, and you were raised by 2 wonderful men, an uncle and a grandfather, and he was. And I thought I did make a mistake in one area because I thought his father was on the other side. And I said, I'm being told that you were told your father didn't want you, but that's not true. He didn't know about you. And so he looked at me, and this was his first experience with a psychic. He said, I was raised by two wonderful men and everything. And so bottom line is he and his wife came to see me a couple of weeks. They wanted to come and see me, and they wanted to know more information. And I gave them more information. And he actually did a 23andMe. And based on what I gave him, he found his father.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, in fact, he has another reading with me. He hasn't had a reading in probably 2 years, but his wife just had a reading with me about a week ago, and he wants another reading.
Yeah.
And of course, it's so interesting because his mother never told him the truth, and he said he never really could quite connect to his mom, and she was still here living. And when he told her, she was like, "You're going to believe a medium?" And he said, "Yes, I am."
Yeah.
That was just a wonderful, and he's just the nicest guy ever. I loved him and his wife. So I was so happy he found his father.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any other like remarkable readings that you want to talk about?
I mean, I could go on forever, but one in particular that was very tough for me was a woman who made an appointment to see me. And I thought she was coming by herself. And she showed up with 2 teenage children, a boy and a girl. And I said, "Oh, and you brought your mother." I thought it was her mother. And she said, "Yes." And they all came in, and I thought, wow, this is a whole family. What's this about? The moment I started, I took her hands, and all of a sudden, you get all this information so quickly. And I said, "Oh, my God, no." I said, "You lost your husband." And I said, "He took his own life." And now I had to help this whole family, his kids, his wife. And I was told it was her mother, but I looked at the mother, the older woman, and I said, "He's telling me you're his mother, not his mother-in-law." And she said, "I am his mother." And he had the most beautiful messages for each one of them. And they all had to be treated so differently, as you can imagine. But I thought, how in the world am I going to do this? I didn't have to do anything. Spirit took over. And one of the most beautiful parts was that the 17-year-old son, this was about 6 years ago, the 17-year-old son was just an amazing kid. And I said, "You knew a police officer who died in your town about a year ago." And I said, "The family knows him." And they said, "Yes, we do." And I said, "He's come in and he's telling me that you, the son," I said, "you are scheduled and you will do this. You are going to be not only go to college and take criminal law and everything, but you're going to be a commissioner of police. You have a life that has been arranged for you on the other side." And this kid still sees me and comes to me about maybe once every year at least. And he's finished college, and this is exactly where he's going.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say to him, "Are you still going to know me when you're the commissioner?" It's like I say to you, Kyle, "Are you still going to know me when you're the star?"
Of course I am. Yeah. No, all those stories are amazing. I know I could listen to these for the rest of my life, and I'm sure you have enough stories to do that. But Bob, what are you thinking?
Well, it's funny because Ruthie had a story when I first met or reached out to Ruthie. Ruthie checked out my website, my IMDb page, and I had forgotten that I had a story about my youngest daughter, Emily, who's autistic, and a link to a video. It was called "The Ghost in Emily's Crib." And I'll just set it up real quickly. Something I posted on YouTube. It has like probably 10,000 views. That actually was on a couple paranormal podcast shows about it as well. But it was for weeks. My wife at the time was saying, on the baby monitor, there was this weird type of ghosty, spindly figure traipsing across our daughter. And it was at any time of day. It wasn't just at one point a day or whatever. And some people would say, oh, it's a cobweb. Oh, it's the light coming in through the blinds. But it was at night. It was in the morning. It was in the afternoon. And I just always blew it off. It happened for like 2 weeks. And then I was alone babysitting one day and I noticed it and I saw it. And so this was like, 10 years ago. So I took out my video camera, which is a very bad video camera. So it's not super great quality, and made like a 2-minute film about it. And Ruthie, when she went to check me out, she checked my IMDb page, I don't know if you remember, and then she checked out that video. And so the first time I talked to Ruthie, I said, "Hi, Ruthie, how are you?" And she said, "No, I got to talk to your wife first." And so, because you talked to my wife, Angela, about what you kind of picked up from that video. Do you remember that, Ruthie?
And I knew that little baby, and there was no mistake, and that came through incredibly clear. That was a twin. And I knew it immediately. I don't remember even what your wife said to me, but I just know what I know. So, and twins, I've seen many twins where one either died at birth or one died in utero or one died pretty early. Doesn't make any difference. They never quite leave the other twin. And the other twin, well, I've been called in to talk to little children who had a twin. In the past, they lost the twin in utero. Something happened. And these children always feel like they have another child around them. It's unbelievable. Have you ever talked to your daughter about that?
No, it's funny. She, that's how I met the shaman from the film. He actually came in and he kind of met her, and he had this crazy experience, which I won't repeat. I have a brother who listens to every podcast, and I tend to repeat stories sometimes, and he kind of tells me not to do that. So I won't, but basically there was this incredible experience he had, but she's kind of at the point now where I don't know if she ignores it or whatever. When she was young, she had a friend called Sarah, which could have been that twin. I know my wife fell down some stairs, when she was pregnant with her, and was like really sad. I was like, oh my God, what are you doing up those stairs? They're very narrow stairs. But I don't know. It's like, and I don't remember exactly, we're divorced now, but she, what it was, but I thought she had a connection. Like she thought maybe, there was something. I think it was pretty close to what you said. I don't remember what exactly it was, but I do recall, and that you picked up on that and you went to talk to her first. It was like so cool, and I knew you were meant to be in the film.
I wanted to know that if she knew it, because usually the moms do know. They feel
she had a feeling like she had a birth at some point that wasn't diagnosed or whatever. I don't want to put word for mouth, but there was something along those lines. I don't know if it was a twin with Emily or prior. I don't know.
It could have been a miscarriage, that she had a miscarriage or something.
Yeah, she might have, that never was kind of even caught. I want to talk about 2020, and then I'm going to actually kick it back to Cuyle at the end about Cuyle for any question you ever want to ask Ruthie. And then the big question, which I know, Cuyle, we've talked about, you're a seeker, and that's in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of have had experiences, but you're not quite sure. So I want you to talk to Ruthie about that a little bit. But before we do, Ruthie, I want to just ask you about 2020. It has to be incredibly hard on someone so intuitive and empathic such as you. What has it been like for you? And do you think this is kind of a transitional stage, or is this like kind of a new, almost like the age of Aquarius? Are we going into another kind of awakening or dimension or evolving of humanity? What's going on this year?
Absolutely. It's an awakening and an evolving of all humanity. First of all, at the start of this, in March, one of the things I received a message, which I was so grateful for, that I would not lose one single client to COVID. So I'm going to put you and Cuyle in that group.
Good, please do. Yeah.
So, and I was so grateful for that, because my phone just literally blew up, especially in the beginning. I have a lot of medical personnel, doctors, PAs, nurse practitioners, nurses that I have for clients. I have over 1,500 regular clients. So they were all calling me saying, what should I do? And I said, you're going to be okay. Go to work. You're going to be okay. Because I knew they'd be okay. But the bottom line is the underlying meaning is the people are becoming a whole lot more spiritual. And the families are more meaningful. Families are spending more time. They're finding out what's more important in life. Even even your movie stars, Cuyle.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, it is an awakening. It's another reality that we're moving into. And I find that everyone is getting that. I get calls constantly. I mean, I could be doing readings all day, every day for the rest of my life. And I limit them because I run out of energy. But the bottom line is people are getting this. They're understanding it, that and they've accepted it. And it's an evolving, and they're becoming a lot more spiritual. I mean, I even have atheists coming to me. I'm very faith-based. How do you think this is going to work? And they're like, well, I believe in energy. And I'm like, okay, that's a start. We can do this. So I love it. I mean, I don't love the fact that we're going through so much with COVID, but I do love the fact that there's so much good coming out of this.
Yeah, I'm glad you see there's good, because there are a lot of people that really feel a lot of pain, So I think some of us are looking for some hope. Even happy that there's football tonight. This is where doing the opening of football season, believe it or not, like something back to normal. So yeah, I want to kick it back to Cuyle, because Kyle's, he's had some readings with you. And Cuyle, what was one question like you wanted to ask Ruthie that you never did? And then I'm going to have you kind of maybe talk about it. Like as we mentioned, you're a seeker, and you have been trying to find something. And I think you're open to certain things, but you don't think you've had that connection yet.
I mean, this is a never-ending struggle I have. It's hard to boil anything down to a single question, but a few things that popped up actually tonight while we're talking. Just the idea, like this isn't even necessarily about me, but what do you think of like someone with a gift such as yours, Ruthie? When somebody who has these gifts and they've used them in their life, and when someone passes with these gifts, what do you think? Because, if we keep the same personalities, after we pass from the earth, what do you think happens with the ability in the afterlife? Like, is it something that or what does it become?
I know exactly the answer to this question. First of all, it's all energy. And as we know, and I learned a lot from Rob Guttrow. He was my mentor when I first started many years ago. But energy can never be destroyed. It can be moved. It can be changed. So, and we're all made up of energy. Any scientist will tell you that. So that all energy has different vibration levels. All energy vibrates. It's the nature of energy. So we're made up of energy. So we all have a vibration level. Our vibration level and our intuition is one and the same. If we have an exceedingly high vibration level, it just means that we have very high intuition. We all have the capability of raising our vibration level. And we do that through yoga, through meditation, becoming open, becoming in the moment. The more that you're in the moment, the higher your vibration level will become. I can't meditate because the moment I start to meditate, I have a world of spirit coming in to say hello to me. Mm-hmm. But I'm already past that, so I can't go there. But the average person, absolutely. And the trick is to find out which of your senses is more able to be intuitive. So when we die, our energy keeps going, and the energy is moved and changed into spirit. Now, when people say we keep our personalities, it's not that we keep our personalities. It's that the person on the other side has to show a medium who they were here, or the person we're talking to isn't going to know who we're talking to. Their personality comes in full blast. I'm able to talk about them, talk about their personality, talk about evidential information. But the big difference is they don't have any human leftover emotions. Mm-hmm. But now they have universal love, and they have universal knowledge, so they know everything. And one thing that I heard in the documentary was that one of I can't remember his name, but he said we couldn't predict the future. That's not right, because there is no such thing as time. Time is a human concept.
Mm-hmm.
That's scientific. I predict every day, every single day. And just like I'm predicting babies, I'm predicting whatever is happening. And the hardest thing is to pinpoint the time. It is hard because there is no such thing as time.
Yeah.
But I can usually get a feeling, or sometimes the calendar drops down in front of me and I can predict the month. If that happens, one time I had an exact time for someone dying. The daughter wanted to know so she could be prepared. And I told her, and it was exact, but she was supposed to get that information. So when
Yeah.
we're on the other side, we are full of love and compassion. Everyone goes into the light. I don't care what you did on the face of this earth, you still go into the light,
Mm-hmm.
which was a big shock to me. I have to be honest.
Yeah, I bet. I bet that's like you touch actually your answer there touched on a couple of other questions I was going to ask, especially this idea of time is a human construct. I drive my friends and family nuts with this stuff. They think I'm crazy when I talk about it. It's like, no, it's just like it's a categorical like structure so we can keep track of things, but it's like it's made up by humans. There's no time, and it's like that kind of sentiment I play off in my life. And I talk about like the idea of magic a lot, where we take so many things for granted, as simple as like, what an acorn is. Such a small, simple acorn, which we just call an acorn, grows into this massive oak tree. And it's like, to us, it's just kind of, we look over it. It's taken for granted. It's nothing special, but it truly is special. And it's like the definition of magic, except we bury everything under categories and labels just to make life, so we can comprehend everything. But it's like we remove all magic. And I think that's personally what I'm always struggling with is like, I feel so connected to this world around me that's not the physical world, but I don't feel that I have like a practical experience or a tangible experience that I've had. And I'm just like begging to like feel something more, if that makes sense.
There is a book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And there's also a video course, 10 video course from Eckhart and Oprah, and they did this 12 years ago. I took the course 12 years ago. It's awesome. If you get the book and this is right up your alley, Cuyle.
Okay.
And if you read the first chapter and then and then go through the first video. And I'm going to teach this course. I've been led to teach it, but I'm also going to start doing mini workshops online. I'll let you know when I'm doing them. Maybe you can hop on and enjoy some of them.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Because you're absolutely right about this. You're so right.
Well, that's good to hear that.
It is good. Yes. And there's different levels on the other side, but no one goes to hell. And I mean, I was raised hell and heaven and good or bad. And that's, this is all the way, we're taught. And it's just to keep people in line, basically. And bottom line is, I don't care what you've done. I have seen the murderers on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And they are full of love and compassion. And they're so sorry for what they did when they were here. But they do go into the light and they are happy. And it's unbelievable. And no one wants, because we want justice, because we're human.
Right.
In spirit, we're not human.
That's one thing I've always thought too, was the idea of, the cliched phrase of like everything happens for a reason. Because I've always thought like the people who do or commit horrible acts, because I've always believed, there's no hell either. And when people are wondering, well, how can somebody do something so horrendous and not go to hell for it? And I've always kind of responded with the idea of, well, that's beyond our comprehension. We're not, we're humans. We're not meant to understand anything. And it sounds like a simple answer, but it is. It's like,
but it is the answer.
But it is the answer, right?
It is the answer. And there's been many times that I have seen the reason.
Right.
But I wouldn't be able to. I mean, only certain people would ever understand that. Just like when a child dies, why does a child die?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are reasons. And it's a lot bigger than just the child died.
Right.
And that's the hard part of my job, is to help a parent understand that. But I do try to get to that place with them.
Yeah, I imagine like a lot of that can come from like reasons or lessons that you might not even realize, obviously
Right.
immediately, or you might never realize it ever, but at some point it changed something within you, whether you recognize it or not. And that was the reason.
That's exactly right. Eventually, you will find out. That's the way I put it.
That's
And
great.
and there are things that we're not expected to understand as a human being. We can't possibly.
Ruthie, one of the questions I was going to ask you was, but you already answered it, was about the afterlife. So I'm going to ask you like two other quick questions, if you don't mind, and then we're going to plug some of your stuff coming up. So one question is, can you see past lives about who you were, or do you only see other people? Do you see things about yourself?
Everyone. No, I can see everyone. In fact, sometimes, like, I lost my sister when she was 19, and she was in a car accident. And one day I was just sitting on the sofa watching TV a couple of years ago, minding my own business, and I had my arm extended out over the sofa arm. And all of a sudden, she came up and took my hand. And I was like, oh my God. And I felt her energy, and I said, thank you, Mary. Thank you. Her name is Mary Ellen. But that's an idea of what it's like for me. So, but that was the first time she ever did that. I have to say that. And she's been gone a long time, but it was just the most beautiful thing ever. But I can have a conversation with anyone I want, whenever I want. And I lost one of my best friends a couple of years ago. And I have to be real careful, because when I'm thinking of her, she comes right in. She almost scares me sometimes.
Hello, I'm right here. I've always felt that I was an old soul. Like, can you tell, like, if a person, like if Cuyle and I are old souls, or if he's a young soul and I'm an oldster, or what?
Yes, when I'm actually reading the energy, and I'm just gonna read your energy right now, and actually you're a younger soul than Cuyle.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, and when we say younger, it could be you could have 20 lives as opposed to his 40. Do you know what I mean?
He's around the witch trials. You're right. It goes back. Yeah.
But we have so many lives, and so yeah. And Cuyle, the fact that he was so instrumental with the witch trials and everything, I think that you have a lot of compassion, Cuyle. There's not a doubt in my mind you have a lot of compassion in you that you just don't even know what to do with. And that is all part of your past, because we always bring some of our past into our present. In our life, we always bring part of our past lives.
That makes sense, yeah.
You have a beautiful, compassionate soul. Not that you don't, Bob.
All right, so I'm guessing I was a serial killer or something. I know. I was one of the people throwing witches, hanging witches. Well, cool. Let's close. Look, I know you're not wanting for business or anything, but let's just talk about if someone really needs to reach out or something, or has lost a child. Can you just kind of give us a couple places to get in touch with you?
Yes. Go to my website. Best way is go to my website, and I have a parent form there if you've lost your child. The wait is long, because I only do 2 or 3 a week, but sometimes I put someone ahead depending on if I'm told. Spirit tells me, they guide me. But I have a website, Beantown Medium, and there's a form they fill out, and it comes to my email. And that's really the best way to get a hold of me.
And you're in a book, right? Like the top 100 psychics, but you're like in the top 50, right?
Yeah, there's the book, the top 100 psychics in America, and I was in the top 50. So there's like 3 pages in there on me. I don't like my picture, but I'm not going to complain.
So they can always watch the documentary instead, where you look great. Have them go to the Afraid of Nothing documentary.
If you're done, I would like to leave with something that I've learned over and over and over again through the readings. I'll get answers, and people come to me when they're in the middle of huge divorces, legal disputes, custody battles, you name it, and they come to me for different things, and I will get an answer all the time, and then I have to explain to them how it's going to work for them. But the answer is always, love is always the answer, always. And I say, and they're like, well, that's not going to work. And I'll say, when you do something in love, it can't possibly go wrong, and it can't. And I don't care if you're going through a divorce, a custody battle, no matter what it is, if your intention is love, and it takes time to get to that point for a person, because you can be so angry with whatever it is you're going through. But love is always the answer, or I'll get the answer is always love. And it always is. And I'll be like, oh, God, I'm sitting here thinking they're not going to want to hear this. And they always, always come back to me and say, you were absolutely right. There's many people that come to me for readings to connect to someone from the other side. Probably just as many, or at least 50% or more, come to me for how to help them through difficult struggles in their life.
Well, I'll tell you, this year has been a difficult struggle, I think, for all of us. So it's good to hear that, to be honest with you. Thank you so much, Cuyle. Thank you so much, Ruthie.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Bob.
So much fun. Thank you, guys.
And thank you to our listeners for listening in.
You've been listening to the Afraid of Nothing podcast. Please subscribe and like us on Facebook. Until next time, stay scared.
Hey, you're still here? Great. Then why not listen to another episode? Visit afraidofnothingpodcast.com to peruse all the shows. That's afraidofnothingpodcast.com. And while you're there, click the coffee cup icon to buy me a coffee and leave a review. I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming episode, and the world will know how swell you are.